It's best to
I never saw you that you're doing double exposure for the sky and then bringing it back.
No, I don't do that anymore. I used to do that in the past, but these days I just take one shot and that's it, because I'm too lazy to take multiple shots. It's already taken me a lot of time to set up the photograph for one shot. I mean, I'm always very, very deliberate and intentional about the specific position that I would take when I'm shooting a building, for example. So, you know, that's something that requires a lot of time for me, just setting it up. So if I have to take multiple shots and multiple exposures, I mean, that would take me even more time. And so basically, you know, the composition in the field is one of the most important things that you need to do. And I know that these days with Photoshop and all the tricks and stuff that also people like me are teaching, you know, it's easy to say, you know what, I'll deal with that later on in Photoshop, and I corrected that. But I'm one of those few people who like to come up with a good shot out in the field already.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
All right, so
Joe,
let's go. Yeah,
just to cap off the question about your high-level principles, I put a message out there. They were covered in your video, artistic vision thought process from raw to final image tutorial.
Yeah, it is for sure in there in that video.
Yeah.
But I think I also showed it in one of the other webinars. I'm not sure which one, but I'll look it up. And if it's not there in one of the free YouTube tutorials, I can send the slide to every one of you. Okay. All right. So let's get on with the second part. All right. I'm going to share my screen again. So can everyone see my screen now with Photoshop? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we've started the recording. The summary is still on, the AI summary. All right. Okay, so this is one of the photos that I took in Qatar, one of the photos of the commission project. And this is the end result. Okay. So what I wanted to demonstrate today is that the principles and the workflow that applies to the landscape images also applies to this type of photograph, which is an architecture photograph. All right, so you see that if you look at the final version, this is not the final version, by the way, because the final version is a little bit cropped from the left and also from the right, but it doesn't matter for now. So what I wanted to demonstrate is that the same kind of workflow applies to architecture as well. So what I'm going to do is to convert it to black and white. But before I do that, by the way, I always analyze the image, okay, and I create the mask. So in this case, you do the figure ground analysis. So obviously, this building, the Plaza Towers in Qatar, are the most important object in the photograph. So this building needs to have the highest contrast with the most detail, with the brightest light in or around this specific object or objects in this case. So those two towers are the most important parts. This is also important, but to a lesser extent. So basically, this is a sub-figure. This is the main figure, this is a sub-figure, and the rest is the ground. So this is the ground. Even though it's the sky, it's called the ground. And this is also the ground. So I've done that analysis, and then based on that analysis, you create the hard mask. So what I've done is to create a sky mask, also of all the figures, including the ground, and then also this mask, this one, that, and the other buildings. Okay, and on top of that, I've created all the luminosity masks. So the creation of the mask, that's something that I'm not going to explain today. First of all, I'm going to start again, and I'm going to show you this presentation again. So I've done that, and then I start with this, lower contrast in the ground, or better yet, remove the contrast in the ground and in the figure. Okay, it doesn't matter if you start with this or with that. In this case, this is the sequence, start with ground and then figure. Usually I would start with the ground because then it gives me a good impression of what the mood in the photograph is, but not always. You know, sometimes I start off with the figure. It doesn't really matter. Okay. And then bring back the details in the ground and figure, and then create depth per plane. So those are the essential steps in my workflow. So I've done all that, those steps. So what I'm going to do now is to start off again with conversion. So I only use this once. And then I go to adjustments for removal of contrast. And then I play with this depth and with tools. All right, so start off with this. And again, I can do the neutral conversion. But in this case, I really like the blue conversion because of the contrast that it gives you. Okay, because you see now, if I do, for example, the neutral conversion, it's a little bit lighter. So this is neutral. This with the blue filter. It just gives me a little bit more detail, especially in the foreground. Okay, if you do a red conversion with the red filter, then it's even lighter. This is the red filter conversion compared to the neutral. It's a little bit different, but I prefer the blue filter. So I'm going to get rid of those two layers that I don't need anymore. Blue filter. So what I can do now is to start off with the ground and remove the contrast there. But the thing is, there's almost no contrast in the background, in the sky. So no need to remove the contrast there. So I go straight to the figure. So basically I go skip this and then go straight here. I can still darken or lighten the ground, in this case the sky. But I'll do that later. First I'm going to do something with the figures. So I'm going to remove the contrast and darken it. I'm going to select that. So figures. All right, so I've selected everything in the foreground. And then I'm going to go to adjustments. Low key. It's one of my favorite presets. Say that again, Mike. Okay, I didn't pay attention. Sorry about that. Can you
Yes,
yeah.
The blue conversion filter.
Yeah.
Is the reason why you like it is because it's removing the blue light and it's acting like an atmospheric haze filter.
I'm not sure if that is the case. The thing is just that the blue filter gives me exactly the right kind of tonality as a starting point. I mean, I'm not sure if that's getting rid of the haze or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's acting like a skylight filter.
Oh, perhaps, yeah. Okay, by the way, I used the wrong kind of preset. This is not the one that I needed. I should have used this one, the global adjustment, because this, by the way, I used this one under advanced adjustments, and this is the same as the global adjustments, this one, but here under advanced adjustments, it applies the automatic restore in the background. That's why it took so long. So this is very useful if you are working with landscape images and you don't want to select an area with your rectangle marquee tool, you just want to use your lasso tool, then you'll remove the contrast and it will do so in a seamless kind of way because it does an automatic restore in the background. Okay, so this is the wrong one. I should have used this one, so I'm going to do that again. Now use the low key.
Can I
So
ask
this is much. Yes, go ahead.
button on?
Say that again. I didn't hear that.
On my screen, it's not showing that the record button is on.
I think
It's definitely on.
it is on, right? Or not?
Yes, it's on. It's in the upper left.
Right, got it.
All right. Okay, so I click on low key, set it to 100%, click apply. Okay, you see now that the building is getting quite flat and dark. And by the way, one of the other important black and white principles or principles of good photography is that the most important object in your photograph needs to have the most visual weight. So that is something that is explained in one of the literature that I would recommend in one of the other webinars by Greg Albert. That's his name, the author of the book. I forgot the title of the book, but he says that the darker an object, the more visual weight it gets. Okay, don't forget that. So the darker an object, the more visual weight it gets. So that's also one of the reasons that lately, so I'm talking about the past 7 years, my skies are getting much lighter, and my objects, and especially architecture, are getting much darker. And it's because I want to give the buildings, my figures, more visual weight. So the darker an object, the more visual weight it has. Okay, so that's also one of the reasons that I'm starting off with the removal of contrast and the darkening of the figures in this case. Okay, so before and after. So you see now that it's looking quite flat, right? And okay, what I want to do now is basically this part. Okay, I want to bring back the light and the contrast in the figure and the details and create depth per plane. So what you could do, and that's what most people would do, is to do the following. So that's creating depth. And let me show you that with the building on the left. So the left plaza towers. So what people usually do, if you don't have the panel and you want to create depth, you can do something like this. You go from left to right and you make it lighter, for example. You do something like this. You create depth. You see, this is one way of creating depth, because as you know, the creation of depth is basically a matter of transition, a solid transition from light to dark or dark to light. That's how you create depth in any kind of photograph. I could do this then. I could do a restore from left to right, and now have something that looks like this. So you see, it was flat. Now it has a little bit more depth, right? And you can increase the light even more by doing it again. Let me do that again. Okay. See, it's before, it's after. So that is the traditional way of creating depth. And it is not a very subtle way, because it just lightens everything up and you are still lacking some details. So, and this would be a very good way of creating depth if you have a very flat kind of plane. So let's say the front of this building, for example. This is a very straightforward kind of plane, right? Just a flat kind of plane. So here, the creation of depth with the gradient from left to right, for example, or right to left, lighten or darkening it, would be sufficient, right? I mean, it's just a flat kind of plane. But in more complicated objects like this building, with all the details that you see here, with all the panels and the diagonal panels that you see here, then this might not be the right kind of way of creating depth. Okay, so let me get rid of this one. So I'm just leaving this here as a comparison for later on. So this is created with the creating depth tool, the gradient. So let me show you a way of creating depth that is more complex, but also more accurate, and it works on everything. So not only on flat kind of plates like the front of this building, but also more complicated plates like this building. And there are other examples that I don't have with me right now, but I'll show you how to do that. So again, what you do is create a new layer, because I'm going to do everything with the Pro tools, the Command J or Control J. I'm going to load selection of that building on the left. There it is. And now I'm going to evaluate the luminosity mass. So basically what you do then is to look at the luminosity mass, and you look for a wide range light luminosity mass and a narrow range light luminosity mass. And then you do the same for the dark luminosity mass. You look for the wide range dark luminosity mass and a narrow range. And then you apply them together in a specific layer, and then you create the perception of depth in a much more accurate kind of way. Okay, let me show you. But I'm not going to do that with the darker tones because the thing is, it already has enough darker tones in there. So I'm only going to do this with the light luminosity mask. So I'm going to evaluate them. So if you look at this one, 375, you see if I use this as a wide range, it will affect this entire section here, from here to there. It won't affect this, it won't affect that, and will leave the darker values that are already there intact. Okay, I'm not going to change that. So I could use this as a wide range light luminosity mask. So let me find a narrow range light luminosity mask now. And for the narrow range, I think I can use the 4.5 luminosity mask. Okay, so I'm going to use the 375 as a wide range and the 475 as a narrow range light luminosity mask. And this way I'm going to create that. Okay, let me start with the wide range, this one, 375. Okay. .375, so I'm going to start with a wide range, so intersect with selection. Okay, and I'm going to go to tools again. Of course, I'm going to skip this. I'm going to turn this off because here I'm going to use the restore if necessary. I set it to 2. It's my favorite setting. So typically, again, something like 5 or 10 iterations. Okay. So this is with the wide range light luminosity mask. You see that it already gets a lot of depth, right? And it follows the shape, the curved shape of the building, and also the diagonals in the diagonal panels in the building. Okay, and it also brings back all the details that were there in the building. Okay, so this is one pass. Okay, one cycle of iteration. So, but I find it a little bit too light here, and I still want to apply the narrow range light luminosity. So I'm going to do a restore there. So I'm going to load the hard selection of the building again. Go here. So like, as you can see, I always this one time, then I do this one time, and then I go play with this and that most of the time, the tools and the depth. So I'm going to do a restore from bottom to top. Okay. This is better. Let me see. Yeah, I think that I like this to be just a little bit darker, so I'm going to do a restore from right to left as well. A little bit wider. Okay, something like that. So this is after one iteration, one cycle of iterations. Okay, now I'm going to do the same. New layer, duplicate layer, Command J, Control J, because I'm working with the Pro Tools. Load the building on the left again. And now I'm going to use the 475 wide narrow range light luminosity mask. This one. So I've created the new layer. Okay. And now I'm going to I'm going to load the 475 as well, lights 475 as a narrow range light luminosity mask. Intersect that. Okay. And I'm going to lighten it again with this. Something like 10 iterations. You can also go stronger, then you have to do fewer iterations, but I prefer to build it up like that because I'm looking at it, you know, while I'm applying those adjustments, so I can see it grow. This before, this is after. Okay, All right, so now I'm gonna merge it down. So this is after 2 cycles of iterations. Before and after. And you can see that it already has a lot of depth, right? Because you see that it goes from light to dark, and here as well. So it goes from light here in the middle to a little bit darker on the side. So I didn't do that with the gradient tool. It's just a natural kind of lighting that's already on the building that I only emphasize using luminosity mask in a very deliberate and careful way. Okay, that's what I've been doing. If you compare that with the one with the gradient tool, so straightforward left to right, dark, light to dark transition, it looks like this. It's different, isn't it? So this is the gradient tool with which you usually grade that, but it's still flat, while this is with the new method of combining luminosity mask, targeted luminosity mask with the hard mask, and do a few restores, and then you get this. And this is before, this is after. And I can also show you how it looked like with the blue filter. So with only the conversion, that's even flatter. And compare that with what I have now. I mean, this is close to the final result of the building. So if you look here, you find that this top part is a little bit darker, right? So I only want to add some light, some depth to the top part of the building without lightening this even more, because then it would get too bright. So how do I do that? Let me show you. Okay, I can get rid of this right now. Get rid of that. I said, yeah. Okay, I'm going to create a new layer. Command J, Control J. I'm going to load the left building on the left, like so. And now what I'm going to do is grab my marquee tool, set it to subtract. All right. And then I say, okay, I'm going to subtract this bottom part because I don't need that. I only need to be here and then leave enough room here to do a restore. So this is what I've selected. Now I'm going to save that selection. And again, I call it temp because it's just a temporary selection that I need to get rid of once I'm done. Call it temp number 1. All right, so I've saved that. Now I'm going to find the luminosity mask, the light luminosity mask that will bring back some of the light in here. And I think I need to use the wide range luminosity mask, this one. You see, there's some lighter areas there, meaning that this will be affected, but this will also be affected, but then I can do the restore from bottom to top. So lights 375 it will be. So I'm going to load lights 375. There it is, intersect. Okay, now apply a few of those iterations, the presets. Again, typically around 10. Well, let's go crazy and do a few more. Okay, like so. Okay, so this before, after. Of course, this doesn't make any sense, but we're going to fix that with the restore. Load that section again, that one. Okay, now go to depth, and I'll do the restore from bottom to top. Okay, and perhaps also from right to left. Okay, I need to go a little bit more from bottom to top. So you can repeat this, the same kind of restore multiple times. Let's say we can go up to 5 to 6 times, and after that, it doesn't make any difference anymore. But the first 5 restores in the same direction with the same range will affect it, will restore even more. Okay, once again, third time. Okay, and also a little bit from the right to left. Okay, is it really visible? Okay, but this is only the top part of the building. You see, I've lighted that without too much effort, right? Just a few steps. And now this building has a lot of presence already. I mean, I can still add a little bit more light in here. I can create a little bit more darker tones there, but just compare it with what I had before, this, then the removal of the contrast and the darkening of the building to create visual weight in my most important figure, which is the building, and then do this and do that, and you have a lot of depth and presence in the building already. Okay, if you want to, let's say, make this even more shiny, this part, because it's a metal kind of building, you can do that again, or you can go to depth and use this one, special effects. So what you can do then is say, okay, I'm going to grab the marquee tool and then indicate where you want to have that shiny kind of effect. Let's say over here. All right. So, no, something like that. Okay. Then you, since this is a vertical, okay, I click on vertical, lighten, set it to 2, like so. Okay, then you see this. Then you have to do a few restores to make it even more subtle. So from right to left, left to right. Okay. Then you have something like a more shiny kind of look there. You see that? Then I wouldn't do this for this building, by the way, but you know, this is how you can do that. Or you can make it more diagonal if you want to. So you can, what you can do that is to say, okay, you can rotate it if you want to. Okay, but then so you can click on free transform, and you can do something like that. You can move it into place like so, and then you have something like this. Okay, then you follow the panel. You see that? So this is what you can do with that, and then you can also copy that to make it even stronger. Okay, this is I'm exaggerating right now, but you see what I mean. And you can also stand on that one, for example, and say, okay, I'm gonna pre-transform that one, okay, just the top layer, and just move it that way. So you can move it in all directions. But this is all just trickery. Okay, this is something that you can use if you want that, but the best is always to use luminosity mask. This is just for a finishing touch. That's what I would say. Okay, so I've done this. And again, this is really easy, isn't it? All right. I can do the same with the building in the back. So let me do that. Okay, I'm going to create a new layer, like so. I'm going to select the building on the right. That's this one. Okay, let's have a look at the luminosity mask again. Okay, I think I can still use 375 as a wide range luminosity mask. And let me see. Okay, I think I'm going to use 4.5 or 475 as a narrow range. I think I might need 4.5. Okay, so it's going to be wide range. Lights 375, narrow range 4.5. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I've already created a new layer. So start off with the wide range. Intersect. So go in here. And again, typically 10 to sometimes 15 iterations. Okay. You see that it already gets a lot of presence, right? I think it's a little bit too light from there. I just want to keep this darker. So what I'm going to do is to load the building on the left, on the right again. Do a restore from left to right. So you have to go back here. Okay, so I've restored it. So now it has the older, darker values again from the layer below it, but now with the highlights added there. So I think I like this. Okay, now I'm going to do a new layer, and then I'm going to apply the narrow range light luminosity mask. So building on the right, and then I'm going to that was 4.5 intersect. Yep, just ignore this message. The tools, Pro Tools, lighted. Okay. Okay, so there it is. All right. So this is the result of the adjustments with the luminosity mask to create depth in this building after 2 cycles of iterations. You see that this building gets volume, right? It has this, you get a much better sense of its shape and of its presence, right? Just by using luminosity mask. Suppose that you want to do this with just the gradient tool, then you have to apply a sort of diagonal gradient. That's surely possible, but then you're still lacking the details. So this is my preferred way of creating depth, using hard mask in combination with luminosity mask, a wide range and a narrow range. And usually you also have to do this for the darker tones, so you can connect light with dark. And if you want to top it off with, let's say, a normal gradient, you can also do that. But this is the way of creating depth in more complicated, more intricate shapes and planes like this building. Okay, so this is what I have for now. Of course, I still need to do a lot of stuff with this building here and this part of the street, etc. But this is the main part of this specific kind of demo for this building. Are there any questions for now?
Joel, I want to ask something.
Yes, go ahead.
Why in special effects or in any other steps you don't put the blending mode on luminosity? Because as I know, if you put it on normal, then it can affect the texture. But when it's in luminosity, it can't affect on the texture.
Well, I could have done that, but that's a completely different kind of approach. I like to keep it straightforward, okay? So that's always very predictable. Of course, you can do that, but then, then you're basically following a different kind of approach, right? I mean, I like to keep it simple here. So just revealing the luminosity mask, revealing the light with luminosity mask in a very simple, straightforward kind of way. I could add all those kind of things, but then different kind of blending modes, but then you make it too complicated for now. I hope that will answer your question. Recordings of progress. Okay, so I'll go to the final part, but before I go there, I'm going to add one bonus part that's not going to be on YouTube. That's only for the attendees that are here today, just to show my appreciation that you have been here. I mean, you could have easily watched this on YouTube, but it always means a lot to me that you are here wasting your time on me. Okay, but so I have a bonus part that will only be demonstrated here. So that is going to be the final part. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. So you should be able to see my Photoshop screen with an image that I received from Nat Kaplan. Right, Nat? Thank you for that, for this beautiful image from, I don't know if Nat is here today, but he gave me this image. It was shot in, I think it was in Oregon, one of the beaches in Oregon. All right, so another example of a landscape kind of image. And I've already created these selections. This took me a little bit more time. Okay, see here a sky selection, selection of the foreground, and then I did this, and I did that, and this is the working mask. So you see here, this is actually a hard mask, but created in such a way that it will blend more smoothly with its direct adjacent background here. And this was done with Photoshop. So basically, okay, I promise to not say too much about masking, but I just want to show you this because it's really important. So the mask that I created here was done with the object selection tool in Photoshop. So here you have object selection. Okay, and no, that's not the one. This object selection. I took my marquee tool and then I said, okay, select this for me. So it takes a few minutes or at least a few seconds. Okay, there it is. Okay, there's the selection. So it is a pretty decent selection, but it's too, okay, if I save that, you'll see that, let's say, call it tab 1. See, it's too hard. Some edges are not accurate, and I like to have those edges a little bit more softer so that it blends in more seamlessly with its adjacent background. So for that, I created this, and this you cannot create with Photoshop, but for that, I use my Quick Mask Pro panel. And a lot of people do not like this Quick Mask Pro panel because the thing is, it's quite complicated to use. So, but for this, I use this as a input selection. Okay, so I use that. So let me use that selection. Just going to show you. So HHH is the same as this one. And then okay, I have to rename this because else and then I went to manual object selection tool, and then I chose this one with partial blending on. So what happens then is that only those parts that are not adjacent to the sky will be softer. So you can click on that, and then you will get a mask that will deal with the more amorphous shape of this tree trunk. I don't know what it is actually. It looks like a trunk. Okay, so I've clicked on that. So this is not a demonstration about the Quick Mask Pro panel, but I just want to show you how I created that. And it's actually quite easy to do that. Oh, no, it's done. Okay, so you see here that it creates 3 different kind of masks, and you have to select the one that you think will do the job for you. So this has, I think the edges are too soft here. You'll see that the edge stopped being soft where the trunk, the tree trunk touches the sky. Okay, there you see that it has this hard edge, and it should be like this because else you get this halo kind of effect around the tree trunk where it's touching the sky. Okay, so that is what this panel does, create masks like this. But I've used this one, the LM2, the second one, and that's what I'm using here for this demonstration as well. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this, how I created that mask, and that this Quick Mask Pro panel is, well, it's far more than just a luminosity mask panel. It creates all sorts of masks that are, I think, are very useful for this kind of black and white post-processing. Okay, so I've created those masks. Well, let me show you what I'm doing then. And again, I'm following the same kind of workflow. first you go to, okay, before you do that, of course you create the mask, which I've already done. I'm also creating the luminosity mask. I didn't do that yet, so let me do that. So I'm always starting off with the quarter values. Okay, so now I created the mask there, the luminosity mask that I'm going to use. All right. So first off, I start off with the conversions. And again, I like the blue filter. Okay, so this is something that I use most of the times, the blue color filter, or this one, the neutral. I very rarely use the red, yellow, or dark red filters. Just this one or that one. Okay, so I wanted to show you this because it has a very complicated shape. And this is also an example where I do, let's say, a high key adjustment of the background with the removal of contrast, and a low key adjustment on my main object, which is the tree trunk, and then darkening it. So let me show you what I mean with that. So here we go to adjustments again, global adjustments, and then I'm going to load this one. Okay. Now I'm going to invert it so I can use the background, everything that's not a tree trunk. I hope it's a tree trunk. It is driftwood for sure, but not sure what it is. Okay, so now I've selected everything except of the driftwood that you see here. So now I'm going to do a high key. So I'll remove the contrast and I'll make it lighter. Because again, you know, the darker the object, your main figure, the more visual weight it has. Again, I think that your figure, the most important object in your photograph, always needs to have the most visual weight. So that's why I like to darken them more compared to its adjacent ground or background. So I'm going to do high key. Okay, so I removed some of the contrast in the ground and made it lighter as well. Okay, so this is what I've done. Okay, now I'm going to do the same, but now with the low key and remove of contrast of my figure. So that's this. Now I'm going to do a low key. So in this case, I'm using the global adjustments twice in opposite directions. So you can do that too. Okay, this is really dark, but a little bit too dark. Let's say 85%. Okay, so now I went from here to there, and it's already a completely different kind of look, right? So it has a darker object, flat, it has no detail at all. So I'm going to fix that by bringing back some lights in the driftwood. Okay, so I've done that. So now I'm creating a new layer. Hold on a minute. Creating a new layer. I'm going to load selection of the driftwood. This one. Okay, and I'm going to find the light luminosity mask to bring back some of the details in this driftwood. So let me evaluate those. So if I use this one, 175, I would lighten up this entire part here, and also parts of that. It's maybe a little bit too global and too light. So I'm going to go to 225. So that's already better. So this also means, since this part is dark, that I have to do this in two phases. I have to find the luminosity mask that will lighten up this part here, and then one that will lighten up this part there. Because I cannot use the same kind of luminosity mask for the entire driftwood. I think I like this one much better, 275 compared to 225. 275 is already better, but maybe 325. No, that's a little bit too dark. So I'm going to use 275 to lighten up and bring back the details in the lower part of the driftwood. And then I'm going to use another luminosity mask to lighten up the top part of the driftwood. Okay, so 275. There it is, intersected. Ignore this message. I go to Tools, Row Adjustments, and then lighten it. And again, typically 10 iterations. Something like that. You see it gets back all of its details again. Looks much better now, I think. I think it's a very beautiful photograph. It's a very interesting kind of structure. Okay, let me do a few more. Okay, this should be enough. Okay, so I have this before and then after. All right, but you see that the top part doesn't have enough light there because I've used 275, which is a little bit too dark for this part. So now I'm gonna do this again, now with a different kind of luminosity mask. So do a copy of that layer, load it again. Then I combine it with the restore to make sure that the bottom part's not getting too light. Okay, so now I need to find a different kind of luminosity mask because this one was too dark for the top part. You can see it's almost black, so it doesn't add too much light in this top part. So I'm gonna go to 175, 225. I think I like 225. Okay, so I need to do a restore from here to there later on because else this gets too light. Because 225 should be enough to bring back some of the details in the top part of the driftwood. So 225. Yeah, like it. And keep in mind, I'm going to restore the bottom part, so that gets lighter, but that's not a problem. Okay, let's have a look at the top part. Yeah, it's getting more detailed now. Okay, now I can load the selection of the driftwood, like so. Now I'm going to do the restore from bottom to top. So go here. So again, stools and creating depth, and proceeded by conversions and adjustments. That's basically all I do all the time. So I'm not going to do a restore from bottom to top since it has quite a range. I'm going to set it to a range of 3. So, okay, that needs even more. Okay. And I've done only the top part, right? This before, this is after. Okay, look, can use a little bit more of the restore. Okay, once again, something like 4 or 5 times. That's the max that you can do, but now only the top part has been affected. You see that? And together with this, it affected the entire driftwood. You see that? And if you zoom in, you can see how it brought back all the details. All right. So this, of course, you can do so much more with this photograph, but I just wanted to show you this, that you can apply that luminosity mask principle and the removal of contrast principle to do something like this. And then you can also work on the sky. I would make the sky a little bit lighter, I think. So let me try doing that. Just gonna make it a little bit lighter. I'm just gonna load this, then say bottom to top. Two passes, went from here to there, and something like that. And I can also merge it down and then do a restore from right to left and left to right. So this is before, this is after. If I want to make this a little bit darker. Okay, then I can do this, do that, and a little bit from the top to the bottom. Okay, so then I've only lightened up the part just behind the driftwood. See that? Just to enhance the difference between the ground and the figure even more, to give this driftwood even more visual weight. See that? If you make this lighter, and I made it only lighter just behind this by lightening the sky, and then do a restore from right to left and left to right. Okay, so obviously you need to do much more with this photograph, but this just to give you the impression what you can do. And then suppose that you're done with this, what you can do then is to apply split toning. Like I said, I like the into the mystic. I also like the low down. But let's do it into the mystic to finish it off. And you will see that the split toning is really very subtle. Okay, I'm not going crazy with those split tones because I think split tones always need to be subtle. Okay, so this is before without split tone, and this is with the split tone. You see that it's a very subtle kind of change. It's a little bit let's say the darker object has a little bit cooler tones, while the lighter background has a warmer tone. This is before. So this is neutral, so it's a pure black and white. This is with a split tone. And as you can see, it's not a crazy kind of split tone that you often see in other software or demonstration. I just don't like that. You have to be subtle about this kind of split toning. You have to be subtle with everything in black and white photography. All right. So I have just one more demonstration to go. That's the bonus feature. Any questions till now?
Hello, Jules. This is Marco Maljers from the Netherlands.
Hello, Marco.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Long time no speak.
Long time no speak, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You changed the lower part of the wood by using the lights, and you also use the light luminosity mask to do the upper part. But the other way around, you could also generate the lower or the mid luminosity masks and then make it brighter. Or
You mean the mid-tone luminosity mask, or
yeah,
you
the
mean-
mid-tone or the dark luminosity
yeah.
masks.
Oh yeah, you could do so many different kind of things with this, and yeah, you're right about that. It's just that for this demonstration, I like
Yeah,
to
okay,
use the
okay.
the
Yeah,
light
yeah,
luminosity,
because
Yeah.
you selected lights 3 or whatever 4, and then made the upper part of the wood lighter. It's yeah, it doesn't matter, because if you use the darks, you could probably have the same effect, I think. Because I was just wondering why you choose the lights, but
but you're right. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you could have also used the mid-tone luminosity
yeah,
mask.
yeah,
So
okay,
basically,
okay, yeah, then
this
it's clear. Yeah,
this kind of
thanks.
thing, but with the midtones, because then what you do then, if you use the midtones, then you will then you will not affect the darkest tones or the lightest tones, but just the tones in between,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But there are so many ways of going about
Yeah,
it
yeah,
as
of course,
well.
of course. It was just I was just wondering why you choose, but it's just a matter of yeah. Okay, thanks,
Yep.
thank you.
Not a problem. Anyone else has a question? No? Okay, then let me check first. Let me check the chat. What do you think about using a blank Photoshop mask and restoring gradients with the brush on it instead of doing direct restores? I don't like using the brush because it isn't accurate enough. If you use the restore, it's a gradient. There's always a subtle transition from before to after. Okay, because you can never replicate that using a brush. I've done that in the past. You know, I've done everything that I'm doing right now with the restore, which is basically a gradient that restores the the previous layer with the new layer. I've done it in the past with a brush, but it took me so long and it was not that accurate that I thought, you know what, there must be a better way. And that's why I'm using now the restoring gradients. I hope that answers your question. But that's from Manuel Ponce-Luque. Then I'm going to go, if there are no questions anymore, I'm going to go to the final part, which is the bonus part, which is not going to be on YouTube. So everyone who has stayed here till the end, I'm going to show you something. And some of you have already seen it, but I'm going to show it to you anyway.